Meaty men slapping meat.
See if this will work. Nope, didn't work. Woo! Oh, that's not what I wanted either. All right, hi everybody, welcome to episode 33, season 2 of Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas about your Detroit Red Wings finally have a home. Today we're going to be talking how to properly utilize cap space for a team that's going to have $45 million.
I'll tell you how, Matt.
With
right. Medieval creatures like the ghost bear.
We'll get into it. We also take a look at some recent trade rumors. And Mike, is every NHL player supposed to be a 200-foot player? So popular conversation today on Twitter. We'll get into all that. But before we do, we've got some business to get into.
Yes, we do, Matt. Nothing more interesting than business to open up a show for 5 minutes. Matt, we're going to sprint through this one. It's 68 seconds. 1 second for every team. Here we go. 68 teams started the tournament. Only the best have survived. We're talking about college basketball. And they want us to reference a compelling storyline. Man, this tournament is trash. Man, Michigan is out. Who cares? But maybe you can still win some money on it, right? Maybe the rooting interest is gone, but you win some money. So, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. It's true. I looked it up right now. It's true. It's putting new customers on the side of the action. Old customers, old hat, nobody cares. New ones, step right up, bet $1 at any tournament again. If your team wins, you win $100. Well, that's pretty simple. I bet $1 and get $100. Doesn't even matter if I win. Fine print. Oh, we do have to win. Okay. So turn your $1 into $100. It's 100 to 1 odds. Pick any college basketball team that's still in the hunt, which doesn't include the yellow team. So for your shot at winning $100, all it takes is a $1 bet and that team winning their next game. The caveat. I thought we had him. So there's no better way to put your college basketball knowledge to the test than to put your money where your mouth is. Blah, 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 blah. Then with DraftKings Sportsbook. Matt, take it away.
Don't worry if college basketball isn't for you. DraftKings Sportsbook offers daily odds boosts of pro basketball, hockey, golf, and so much more. And Mike, they're now working with the WWE. That's right. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 if the college basketball team of your choosing pulls off the win. That's code THPN to turn $1 into $100 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana 1-800-9-WITH-IT. All right. Whew,
Man, I'm jacked about this episode. You got some juicy notes in there.
Woo, that's right. We either spent 30 minutes talking about our 4-1 loss to Florida, which I think we could get into for a little bit, or we have some fun with some things that social media world was just blown up with the last couple of days. Let's get the boring stuff out of the way, Mike. I do want to talk about the Red Wings and the Panthers. Mike, here's the thing. We won the 5-on-5 expected goals battle.
So we always do.
What is our
specialty?
Mean? What does that mean for us and us losing 4-1? Well, we go back to not being able to finish, and of course, Calvin Pickard being in net. And that first half of the first period was a nightmare. And it's not necessarily like if I kind of have the list here. The defense was totally on their heels the first half of that first period. And it's Stahl, I put it this way, Mike. Stahl perfectly screws up a face-off transition. So basically, that first move out of the faceoff, just a complete blunder. It's Mike. I made the comment that Glendenning wins so many faceoffs. One of them was bound to end up being a goal against. Like, that's just, it's like a shot on net. Like, what? Eventually the shot on net goes in. But for Glendenning, who probably gets more faceoff attempts than shots, eventually one of those faceoffs is going to go against us. Great play on the second, but also it just looked like they were dancing around, like cones in the middle of the ice. And third is a tip in. After a failure to clear the zone, Pickard makes a save. Yes. And we can't get the puck out. And the guy he actually made the initial save on gets a tip in. And it was, Mike, the reaction to that goal was such a, man, what the hell is going on with this Red Wings team? And it was from the Florida Panthers side. Like, it was like, oh, man, we did it. It was a mixed reaction. It was, I can't believe this went in. Wow, this is easy. All of those mixed reactions. So Pickard is not playing, like he's not, how do I want to put this? He wasn't going to Jordan Bennington the second half of the season for us. But I still say, going back and looking at those 3 goals, a lot of that is all of him and his buddies just standing around, having a good time, having a good chat out in front of the net.
Yeah. You know what I'll say, Matt, is I think Pickard no longer Captain Picard. We've had to retire that. We've gotten a lot of flack for a great Star Trek reference. Man, this was a perfect storm for the Red Wings. Bobrovsky was in net. For some reason, he likes seeing winged wheels, and he likes making sure they don't have any joy when they play hockey.
Have you seen those stats for the last 2 years?
He's quite the wing killer, let me tell you. And the Red Wings looked excellent. They looked like a real NHL team at home. This game is in Florida, Matt. So we knew what was going to happen there. I think we've got maybe 2 wins on the road this year. 2 wins. So this was not number 3.
Yeah, I mean this really was like I don't know. I don't want to call it a perfect storm, but just with the way Bobrovsky's been playing against us, like if you're not paying attention, you'll go ahead and start the game and you'll make fun of Bobrovsky because he signed that huge contract and he's been really, for the most part, a big bag of nothing. But if there's any, 6 games total to point to where the Florida Panthers are like, that's our boy. It's all 6 games against us.
I just the past 3 seasons, his save percentage is, in Columbus, it was .913 his last year, and then Florida, it's been 900 and then .907 for this season, Matt. Albeit in a smaller sample size. Just put it in perspective, this past game is at 97 when the Red Wings peppered him with 36 shots, and he just cackled in glee. But stopped 35 of them. So I think he's got to want more Red Wing games on the schedule. I gotta say. Yeah,
like it's almost like ridiculous if there was a Panthers game against the Wings.
It's almost like we got to set up our show when there's a road game. We got to come in with extra topics because we know it's a loss. We know it's going to be rough. We know our defensemen are going to justify some maybe new defensive acquisitions. Huh, Matt? You got a juicy one for us here? Huh? Or is there I know there's something else you want to do first. Let's do the other thing first.
I will say I unfortunately don't have any new defensive acquisitions, but yeah, Mike, hot debate today on Twitter was I think based on the guy's Twitter account, so he doesn't need to get any more famous, and also I can't remember his name. Threw out there just casually last night.
That was a really good clapback, by the way, but go ahead.
Not every NHL player needs to be a 200-foot player. Now, I think when I first thought about this, and he labeled it as a hot take.
Let me do this. I'm coming in ice cold. You already have the context, and you're part of the debate. I'm coming in ice cold turkey. Not every player needs to be a 200-foot player. Matt, as somebody who watches a lot, we'll say too much NBA basketball, I think this is a very fair statement across different sports. This to me says, is he a guy? Is he, can he hold his own on the defensive end? Is he somebody we can count on when we need a goal? At center ice to kind of transition, from being on your heels to being on the attack. Can you forecheck? All that stuff, I totally understand the value and merit of. But I watch a sport where we have so many specialists. They're literally general managers will go into a draft to look for a guy who's 3 and D. All we need you to do, play some defense, and then stand in the corner and hit 3-pointers. I don't need you to dunk. I don't need you to handle. I don't need you to pass. Play defense, and then go stand over there and just hit a wide open shot. That's all we're asking of you. So I got to say, man, I don't know. I understand the merit. And you can go ahead and attack my viewpoint after this. But the Red Wings, we love Robbie Fabry. And I know he's never going to be, a Selke winner. He's never going to be Datsuk. But, I don't mind having a guy like that on my second or third line who, his whole life is, making plays, getting the puck where we need it and getting some points. So I'm going to say no to this, Matt. I'm fine with some, defensive defensemen on the team. I'm fine with some offensive stars who, aren't as skilled on that other side. I'm going to say no. I don't think it's necessary. I think specialists are okay. Hit me.
So here was my issue with this. And this is why I wanted to bring it up, because I almost look at it as like, well, yeah, of course. All right. And this is where I'm starting. Right. To me, there are guys, like when you put it as a specialist, there's just the certain things that they do right. And if you take a look at the Red Wings roster, if we wanted to find like the 200-foot player, if we have a guy that is, I just want to say, if you just wanted to look at it, and I don't know if I want to say like a bell curve, because it's not like he's really good at center ice and he's pretty okay on the up. I mean, everything is just, it's a flat line, right? He's going to be able to perform on the defensive side, and he brings the same amount on the offensive side. There might not be the finish there, and the boy I'm talking about is Vladimir Nemestikov. So that guy, when we picked him up, and this is like our most viewed video on YouTube, I took a deep dive in his analytics, so you guys can go take a look. But this guy really is the definition of a 200-foot player based on everything he does in regards to bringing like hits per 60. I know we're talking about Nemestikov and we're still throwing in the hits per 60. I mean, this is a guy too that plays different positions, so you can even count on him to play center. And I know, like right now, what I'm trying to do is get everyone who's listening to think about: are we defining a 200-foot player accurately? Because there's also the idea of, if you can improve the forward player that is primarily a goal scorer, if you can get him to learn to not just throw pucks into the center of the ice or the middle of the ice to prevent bad turnovers, I just, like, it's so weird. Like, I think we just need to think about how this idea first surfaced, and are we even asking the right question? Because I don't think a coach goes into their locker room and expects to see, I mean, 18 guys that are going to work 200 feet. I mean, we see the differences in ice time, so we know that coaches are fully aware of what's going on. But I just think it was like a misinterpretation of when we asked Connor McDavid to play better defensively, right? And this year he is. So this year he's like playing better defensively. He's still fantastic offensively, and like for sure Hart Trophy, for sure in the top 2 right now. So I guess I just, like, I saw it, but I don't know if it's actually, the more I thought about it, is that a realistic issue? Or are we just like upset when our favorite player, who's primarily offense, gets asked to be better defensively? I don't need Robbie Fabry to be our best defensive forward, but last year, when he was statistically going to give up more goals than he was actually going to bring to the ice, you have to ask the question for any player. Forget Robbie Fabry. For any player, you have to ask the question: are they bringing enough offense, or shoot, are they stopping enough pucks? Like a Luke Glendening, who we don't look to bring offense. So is he preventing enough from the other team to merit his ice time? And it's so much more complicated than that. But I felt like that's where the conversation should be. And we went in this completely different direction that I don't even know if it's like the way you put it. And you were comparing it to the other sports. I just like, it just feels so outside of the realm of what reality is. And I don't know. I guess I got upset the more I thought about it all day today, because the first thing I thought was, yeah, what's with all these coaches? You know, Torts, he's got to learn a thing or two about Patrick Laine and what his specialty is. But then, like, does Patrick Laine really need to, like, sit and practice and, like, continue to just shoot the puck at the net? I don't know. Like, there's also a strategy that a coach has, and he wants every player to fit into that strategy. I don't know if you change your coaching style based on having a different player. I just all of this came flooding in like maybe 3 hours after the debate started, and I wanted everybody to kind of look at it from a perspective from that realm. And it's always me. It's always me taking these black and white ideas that everybody comes in with the yes, clear no. And it's like, no, everything's gray. It's always been gray. There isn't the 200-foot player. But like, Mike, we just talked with Scott Wheeler a week ago. He came out with his the William Wallander article that he talked about in our interview. And everybody, it's worth right now. I think you can subscribe for $1 to The Athletic. It is worth just to read that. Like, this is one of the longest articles I've seen on a single prospect. It is so like in depth, fantastic insight. But when you look at William Wallander, he's great on the offensive side. And then when you watch him, he's playing games right now. Some of the issues that Scott Wheeler brought up were the pucks that were just, he kind of gets all worked up on the defensive side. He gets a little anxious, you could even say, when you watch him play, because he's moving his feet a little bit more. He's second guessing himself. He starts going in one direction and changes his mind and maybe even makes the right decision on the second thought, but he's already out of position at that point. So don't you want that guy? Don't you want Wallander to like continue to grow and not just go, well, he's doing really well offensively, so we're good.
So I would say that in a bubble, if the question's just posed, would you rather have a one-dimensional player or a three-dimensional player? Obviously, you'd rather have a three-dimensional player. But I think if you're taking this, putting yourself in the shoes of a general manager, and you're trying to decide, well, should I sign a series of players for my third and fourth line that are all like a C- at all the skills that make you a National Hockey League player? Or do I roll the dice and get a guy with, what we'll call a flaw, and maybe he's a better goal scorer, so he's like a B plus, in one area. Maybe he really is an F at defense, but maybe playing on the third or fourth line, I can kind of stagger his minutes and not, maybe set him up with somebody who can kind of offset his, defensive liabilities. As somebody who's played a lot of GM mode through a lot of video games, Matt, I'm definitely going to lean toward a guy who can give me a few B pluses.
Yeah.
And, maybe not all goal scorers, like I said. Maybe a guy who's a B plus at defense can be with a guy who's a B plus at offense, and they can offset each other's, weaknesses on offense and defense, respectively. I would much rather go that route than, just, I guess, kind of what was the Steve Martin movie? Was it Parenthood? Where you're just going around the carousel, a bunch of C's, C minuses. I'd rather have the roller coaster to kind of, and then, you try to have like a roller coaster offset each other, kind of like a helix effect. I think that's not just a more compelling watch. I think the other thing too is when you're looking at a guy who's, kind of sees across the board, that's an effort player, right? That's a guy who is going to, grind and try and, get pucks caroming off his head, and, he's going to bust his buns on defense. And then there's people who are just naturally talented at some things, and maybe they don't quite prioritize the other areas of the game. So yes, three-dimensional player, absolutely, across the board. That's the ideal situation. But me, as a GM, I'm going to take a guy who's maybe harnessed and honed one particular skill and then try to find a way to accentuate his strengths and offset his weaknesses with other players who can handle that. So,
yeah, your last point, like to me, is kind of where my head's at right now. Like of course, like we can try and improve guys. I think it comes back to like what is like an MVP, and it all starts like when we start discussing who the best players in the league are, and do we just pick the guy who has the most points? Do we pick a guy who, when he's gone, the team is just has no idea how to pass the puck, but when he's on the ice, the team knows everything, even if he's not leading the league in points. And I think that's where all these conversations stem from, because we always end up asking these players who are already at the top of the league to do more, right? So that's where I kind of thought it, where I think if you're watching something on, I don't want to say ESPN because they're not ready to talk hockey yet, but if it's Sportsnet or TSN, and they're talking about an MVP of the league caliber player that needs to start playing a little bit more defense, or they see some aspects of the game that can be improved, I just don't see that as asking them to be a 200-foot player. I just see that as like, let's mature a little bit. Use some of that experience to say, I'm not going to do this next time. And that might be the difference between more time watching video. I don't know what the hell the regimen is from one side. I don't even know what the media guy's talking about when he says that. Maybe he does mean he wants every player in the league to be a 200-foot player. But what I know is that I don't need every player in the league to be a 200-foot player. But if I'm coaching my team and I see that there is a guy that is making mistakes I can fix, I'm gonna try and fix them, and I guess that's where I fall off on this. But Mike, you ready to move on, because we've got some fun stuff to talk to. We've got some trade rumors, and kind of wanted to talk about our salary cap situation too.
Yeah, that's I love this time of year. It definitely feels like, Matt, for once, it's not just a dump of guys who are going to be unrestricted free agents. It's, at least based on the rumors that are starting to trickle in, it smells like Yzerman, not just in the offseason, but at the trade deadline, is once again going to weaponize that cap space. He's ready to snag the unloved, money-making forwards and defensemen on your team that have been toiling away, gobbling up that precious space. And Steve's like, I'll take it right off your hands. Oh, and I'll take a draft pick too. Sounds good. He is at the Gaucho Steakhouse buffet, Matt. He can't wait for this season. I can't, Matt. I'm like giddy. I'm giddy to see who he swindles. What is it, April 10th, April 16th, that trade deadline? Oh, it's going to be great.
Well, yeah, then we should definitely jump into one of these trades here that trades. Oh my God, I can't talk. That deals with us taking over some cap and weaponizing our own space. But that would be, Mike, what I found online. Bobby Ryan and a third, so our third rounder, going over to Tampa. So Tampa could still get some draft picks. They're just not going to be any first rounders.
Before you say the reveal, this is, I think, the sexiest trade I've heard, and it's so fantastical. I can't believe it was even pitched. But Matt, you're going to give me the justification for it in just a moment.
Where was I? Yeah, I started looking up the other trade. Tyler Johnson in a first. Coming over. Now, Tampa Bay has already tried to let the rest of the league just pick up Tyler Johnson, as they put him on waivers, and everybody said no. So it's basically, what is the price I need to pay to unload this $5 million that Tyler Johnson's getting paid right now? And it's funny because it's not just the price they're paying to bring him over, but we're giving a little bit back too, and a hell of an opportunity for Bobby Ryan. But just to repeat one more time, Bobby Ryan in a third for Tyler Johnson in a first. And Mike, I just like you, I think I'm smitten with this. If this came to fruition, this is amazing for Bobby Ryan. I can't say that enough, because we talked earlier in the season, like, Bobby was told by Steve Yzerman, or like he trusts Steve Yzerman's message. And I asked the question, like, is this what he meant? Is this the kind of trust that he's, like he was referring to? Because he's like, eventually I'm going to send you on over to Tampa. And then for Tampa, you got space. You can bring Cooch back early if you want, because you're going to be making more space. And I'm assuming that I think they do need to make more space than just the 5 of Tyler. But there's time to do that. And this is one of the contracts that I think has been holding them back. And it's the proposition or the issue, I guess I should say, of just is that player at the same worth when he signed the contract. And I think it's pretty clear, at least from Tampa's perspective, since they've put him on waivers a couple of times, that they don't think so anymore. Mike, for you, it sounds like you're really into just bringing Tyler Johnson over, which, with all of our cap spaces we've already discussed. I mean, this is something we can absolutely afford to do. And when you talk about weaponizing the cap, I brought it up last time, but I think of the trades like we did with Mark Stahl, where I was not too geeked out about it. Like, it was going to happen, but we're not really getting a lot of talent back. Now, the main issue here, Mike,
is
that unlike Mark Stahl, this lasts for another 3 years after this one.
Yeah, it's quite the commitment. And if you think that Tyler Johnson, you're still going to rely on him for potential, the dude is 30 years old. He is going to gobble up a pretty healthy, robust chunk of your cap space. But man, if Tampa thinks, we have this championship window, part of that championship window involves Kucherov. Kucherov's ready to come back. We have to make a move. We might as well do it with our best friend in the world, Steve Yzerman, who, basically, assembled this team who won a cup last year. If we're really gonna say that Tyler Johnson, Matt, his numbers have kind of cratered, I don't think they're at where you would want, from Tampa Bay's perspective, for a guy you're paying $5 million. Recently he's not been doing too great this season. A little bit less than a point every other game. Not the best numbers of all time, for sure.
Less than a half a point.
Is that? Oh, I meant to say that. Yeah, less than a half a point.
He's almost at the same production level as Bobby Ryan right now. It's just, I think, I don't know. I'm going to say it. It's a bit of an upgrade because you get a center instead of a winger.
A wing, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where maybe a little change of scenery will kind of help him out. I don't know. We know he had pretty good numbers with Steve. There's nothing to be upset about. I don't think Steve would mind, especially if we're throwing in an extra draft pick, an upgrade from a 3rd to a 1st. I think that's where the real value is going to be. And I would be stunned if this trade went through, because a 1st-round pick to take on a guy like that. He's still got the speed. He's still got value. I know he's flawed. I know his numbers haven't been dazzling. But, man, taking a 1st-round pick for that contract, this is a different story than Mark Stahl at the end. Long in the tooth, Mark Stahl.
We're going to get him to that point. I'm gonna say part of my worry is that his contract. Or you know what? No, it won't. Never mind.
You know what? Let's say this.
If we go 3 years from now, that'll be when we start thinking about Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider's next contract.
Let me throw this at you, Matt. Because one of my favorite things is when they say,
"Hit me, bro."
Who says no? So that 1st-round pick is really sexy. We know Yzerman loves draft picks.
It is going to be a very high 1st-round pick.
It's going to be a very early 2nd-round pick, though.
Right. Let me throw it. I just want to say I think I'd either want to keep that 3rd, or I need something else from Tampa. I just like, if we could take on like $6 million for Mark Stahl, 4 years of a $5 million contract should be worth more than just a 1st-round pick. Because basically that's what's going on, right? We're looking at production right now, and they're neck and neck. So we're taking on more money. We're doing a favor for Tampa Bay.
We're doing a long-term commitment, right?
Right.
We are also saying no to future cap weapon moves, because we're going to have to pay Tyler for pretty long time. So I guess the last question, Matt, is this phone call. Somehow it's a three-way call. All right. Neither the Lightning nor the Red Wings made this call. Somebody pitched it. They're both on the phone. Matt, who would say no first?
I think Steve's going to say no because for this exact trade, I think they're. Yeah, I just got to put it like that because now we're at the half hour I promised my wife that we'd hit for today. But yeah, I think Steve would say no because that's a big chunk of cap to take for 4 years. 4 years of it.
I think the only reason he says no is he doesn't want to give up a draft pick. But I think if you're taking a first round pick and Tyler Johnson, I think he does it for Bobby.
And we have some other trades we wanted to talk about too, but I mean, part of the reason that we're talking about Tyler Johnson is because of our cap situation for next year, in the next couple of years, and we all know it's just this kitchen's going to be bare again, and Iserman's going to have to ice a team. But one of the things that happened this week was Shane Gostisbehere gets put on waivers. Maybe about 75% of Red Wings social media said absolutely not, and then there was the chunk of us that were like, "What's the big effing deal?" Now, my issues with this, and this is where we're gonna have to go a little bit quicker than I wanted to, but we have $45 million in cap space next season. Like, we have space to take these risks. If any team has space to take these risks, it's the Detroit Red Wings. It's also only going to be for 2 more seasons after this. So it's not anything where we're done. But if you want to come at me and tell me that the talent's just not there, I watch every single Philadelphia Flyers game. I know that. Oh, here goes Mike. I know that he's terrible. He's not worth this risk. No matter what we do, we're just doing a favor for Philly because he's going to amount to nothing. Totally get that. And then the other side of this is if you want to talk about how much cap space we have and you want to make the argument that you really hope the Ilitch family continues to hold on to all their money. You want to make sure that they're not losing anything, which I think really does figure into the decisions to hold back on spending the cap, because I think we all thought there'd be more moves to weaponize the cap space over the last few months, and we've seen very little of that, including just going into the season. I shouldn't just say the last few months, but I think we all expected more trades, more trades that were going to increase how many draft picks we had, maybe just another guy to throw on the roster for us to help out somebody else's cap situation, and none of that's happened. So that tells me a lot of this decision making is strictly for the business of Olympia Entertainment and Ilitch Holdings. That's why we're not doing a lot of cap weaponizing. I don't think it has a lot to do with like us trying to be conservative from like a risk perspective. And I mean, the money's there. Like they own the Red Wings, so there's money to spend. But the quick example here, Mike, I think if we signed everybody and from a high point, a high perspective, like a high number, this is from Evolving Wild, is their cap projections for next year for all of our free agents. And I think we saw with what Tyler Bertuzzi got paid this year after arbitration, that all of these are pretty inflated coming from Evolving Wild. So if we sign Hronek, Tyler Bertuzzi, Michael Rasmussen, Evgeny Svechnikov, Giovanni Smith, and John Merrill, of that $45 million of space that Cap Friendly says we have for next season, that's going to take up $15 million. We bring in Moritz Seider, Jonathan Berggren, and Lucas Raymond. Now we're up to $18 million. Mike, just for shits and giggles, I said, all right, fine, we'll bring back Mark Stahl too. That brings us only up another $1.5 million. Mike, if everybody was so concerned about making sure that we have a ton of cap space, which I still say hasn't been weaponized properly because they're more concerned about like COVID and whatnot and the bringing more revenue in and waiting for that. If that's all gone and we're ready to spend in free agency, we could afford to overpay Dougie Hamilton and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins close to $9 million a season each for those guys. And Mike, we're still going to have $6.5 million left over to spend. That's if we land 2 of the hottest free agents for this upcoming free agency, which I don't think is going to happen. And put that out there. So
Wow.
all this wrapped together, I challenge everyone just to kind of have this thought. Are we really still going to be worried about the dead cap era, which is a thing that would stop anybody from making, from using any of the cap? The cap's not going to move. We still want to weaponize. Is that still going to be a thing with ESPN signing the huge deal with the NHL? Plus, Mike, we've got Columbia University, public health informatics, computational and operations research from PHICOR, Bruce Lee, fun, Sarah Barsh, Kelly O'Shea, Patrick Wedlock, and Marie Ferguson, both of those groups, saying that we'll have herd immunity by the end of May. So, are we really sure that the dead cap era is going to be going on for too much longer? I don't think so.
No,
so,
I think the anomaly is finally over, or at least we're rounding third
closer,
and coming home.
Right.
We're getting closer. It's just funny that Gostisbehere, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is even though he's on waivers and it's right there and it's a shorter term commitment, I mean, it's basically, the rest of the season and then 2 more years, easily, palatable for us to swallow that contract. I still think that Steve would rather do the Tyler Johnson deal, not just with the familiarity, from working with Tyler, but that draft pick. I don't know if he wants to weaponize the cap, and snag a guy like this who's, maybe not producing as much as, would be desired by Philly. I still think if he's going to make a move, he's going to include a draft pick. I don't think he's going to move in on this one because there's no draft pick involved.
Right. And I think everyone would agree we'd rather have somebody come in for that. If we're going to bring somebody in, there has to be more than just the reason of picking a guy up. For Gostisbehere, there's at least the association that he was very productive at a point in his career. Can he get back to that? My biggest point is that for this to be an absolute no, and if Steve makes this move, he's an idiot, I'm not there. I'm here for having the conversation that you want to make sure that the Ilitch family doesn't spend money so they continue to be rich. You can make that argument. But you can't make the argument that we are going to ruin our cap situation if we pick this guy up. We have so much space. It's just, to me, it's ludicrous. But we do have to wrap up. So everybody, check out bodpodcast.com or brothersofdiscussion.com. Click on the bottom of the page for Red Wings Rant. We also have our shop down at the bottom of the page if you want to represent for your favorite hockey podcast that takes the side of spend the Ilitch family money willy-nilly. I'm all for it. So that's my take. I think that's the biggest issue I have, and we'll get back to that on other episodes later on. But at BOD Hockey for Twitter, at brothers_of_discussion for Instagram, and please head on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review if you guys do have the time. And we are on YouTube as well as the Brothers of Discussion, so you can subscribe to the channel if you're watching us now for the very first time. Head on over. Let's see, where am I? Head on over underneath Mike. So if Mike points down, you'll see the subscribe button underneath him. There you go. Click that button and follow along. All right. Thanks, everybody.
We're coming.
That's the wrestling show.